interested in is, I think, a philosophical rethink of the idea of decommissioning as something that just has to happen, to something which probably will happen in most cases, but in certain cases might be put off by a certain amount of time to give us more time to find new technology solutions, or open up other ways of using the resource, and also considering the biodiversity values that have accumulated in the sites. Sorry, I don't know if you want to use the mic.
I don't know, can people hear me as I stand here? I think in relation to the panels you've just talked about, there is relatively little risk reputationally for IUCN in terms of compromising its principles, because you're dealing with, in that latter case, environmental improvement, as it were. You're trying to rehabilitate existing environmental degradation. I think the danger, the risks lie in projects such as Sakhalin, where the creation of the panel, in that case, was an attempt to reconcile the precautionary approach with a very aggressive time frame for delivering a project. Normally, as we know from EIA methodology, you would expect to have quite a substantial baseline of information, which in the case of Sakhalin would have involved a very extensive baseline on the whales, which we didn't really have at that time. The company was intent on moving forward. There were polite exchanges between Vladimir and Tony Blair, letters expressing mutual support and so on. There was a huge political imperative for the project going ahead. And so the panel, in essence, was our attempt, and Sakhalin Energy's attempt, to try and accelerate a decision-making process in the absence of a proper EIA approach. And luckily, it worked. And if we look at the project now, despite all the doom and gloom of various stakeholders, I think it's fair to say that the project has come off without any major incidents in terms of tanker collisions or oil spills or as far as we know, whale mortalities or whatever. So you can say we've been lucky, or you can say that the company has planned and executed the project extremely well. But the danger can lie in some projects elsewhere, perhaps, that in trying to overcome the precautionary approach and involve panels, it can affect the integrity of IUCN in one regard, but also B, there's a danger that with a lot of companies, they just say, yes, we'll sign up to having a panel, and we'll do whatever the panel wants, as long as we get the financing. And to me, it's a bit like navigating using a sat-nav machine in your car. You have the postcode, you know where you want to go. So you just put the code in, you want the financing, you want the project constructed. And you just blindly follow what the sat-nav says, turn right, turn left, or whatever, just do whatever it says, without any real understanding of what the outcomes of the project should be, about any proper planning going into it. So I think what I'm trying to say is that if you do go into more of these panel situations with projects which are yet to develop, it's very important to ensure that there's the political will on the part of the client to develop the project, to staff up, to ensure that they are steering the project and not simply reacting to whatever the panels in those cases tell them to do.
I think those are very valuable points. Adding to that level, I mean, as we said, the earlier you can get in, the better it is. There's no doubt that that will enhance the quality of the types of recommendations and design things you can add to the project. The second thing is that more often than not requires a large degree of trust between the company and the group, in our case IUCN. So, a strong company engagement at an early stage, I think, is a prerequisite for this to be meaningful. Otherwise, you will always be post facto, and you basically were trying to catch up, and you will be in a much less rewarding situation for the panels or for all parties that are involved in it. I think another issue that often will come up is how do we select these things, because there's lots of big projects out there. Which ones should we be involved in? My opinion of this is that we should really target the ones where we see replicability. So this can show the industry, provide best practice, or set the standard for the industry. I think there should be something very significant at stake when it comes to the environment. So we have a driver that really is understandable and can be communicated both to the shareholders, but also to the public and to our members in IUCN. And I think it's important to do something in places where the whole idea of license to operate might be questioned, because I think that's one of the fundamentals of the industry. If there's a rush to come in, but in fact if you screw up, you actually lose your license. Well, there's a lot at stake then I think that concentrates the mind of all the parties, and it becomes much easier to actually have meaningful outcomes of those type of situations. So those type of provisions as well. Maybe we can hear from WWF also and their experiences.
So actually there were questions, so two short questions. WWF and John Paul Paddock. The first question I had is we're in Korea. So what scope for countries such as Korea for Western Great Whales occur in a panel or observers? That's the first one. And then the second, I guess, more for Alexei and Carl Gustav. You accumulated a lot of experience with the Arctic and Major Delta here Sakhalin. Does that mean, is there scope for having a global panel with a mix of all of these stakeholders, Sakhalin Energy and others, where you actually look and share best practices across the globe on all of these case studies?
From the first question. I guess you want me to talk about the Korea one, the Korea part of the question. You guys can talk about the other one. I really, I think our first challenge, is to show that, is to find out just how much is left of the Korean migration, establish that there still is one. And I personally don't think that the fact that we have 3 whale tracks that show a pattern is definitely interesting and compelling in some degree, but it's not a very big sample of not a very big universe either, because the population is pretty small. But I guess what I'm saying is that if we had gotten 10 animals to follow instead of 3, then we'd be more assured either way. And I still think there's a possibility that some of the animals would have headed south or southwest. And so Alexei said that more satellite tagging is planned, but it's not until next year. And I should say that, although I wasn't clear from what he said, but at the moment the plan is that that'll be done at Kamchatka, not at Sakhalin. So that, I personally don't necessarily agree with that decision, and we haven't really discussed it, but I think there's still more to be learned about the Sakhalin-based animals, which do go to, we know they go to Kamchatka to some extent, but I think we still want to know more than we know now about that flyway, if you will, or the migratory path to the south and the west. So that's where Korea comes in. Until we can say it's more than historical, it's current. There's a big challenge getting Korean engagement in the range wide initiative, I think. I probably have a different thought of that.
Okay, this is a scientist to decide on what the population is and where migration routes lies. So I will address the second part of the question about the experience. So we use this experience as a company and we'll use it for the future seismic survey if they are, but also our shareholders, they have access to this experience. And for example, Shell uses the experience from cycling seismic surveys in the other projects. Well, and it's also available for the Gazprom. And with respect to the experience of international review, for the recent 3 months, we were contacted 4 times from different parts of the world to share the experience of establishing independent international review, scientific review panel to ensure the credibility of the programs and mitigation measures within the different projects outside Russia, not related to the grey veins. So about the experience, yes, use it.
Yes, I think as IUCN we are also in various for actually doing a bit of summaries of the different panels, and we have tried to do publications that address this topic. I think it is important. I mean, obviously we're not the only ones who are going to get involved in this business of setting up independent panels. I think it's important that we try to learn and mutually find benefits from them. I'm sure there's a lot of commonality in terms of what can go wrong, or how you do to make them as optimal as possible. I believe as an institution, IUCN is well placed to run these things because we tend to have both government membership in many of the countries where we're operating, like in Yemen or in Russia, but we also have NGO membership that provides a strong voice for civil society, and sometimes in places where that voice is not as heard as it could be. So I think those are all advantages for us and puts us in a good position. And I think increasingly we've had better relationships or a stronger trust also with industry, and where there is a perception of benefit to that. So I think all of those, have been positive. Clearly there are challenges, and I'm sure we will have a number of cases where we decide to do something and then we decide we shouldn't do, and there's always an exit clause. I think we will always have a situation where we will say, well, the situation looked different when we went in. We have to recognize that this isn't working, and it's time to exit as well. So, with this, I want to thank our 2 panelists for an excellent round of presentations, and all of you for engaging in this discussion. Thank you.